When will this all be over? I've thought about this a lot over the last 12 months, and I'm sure all of us have probably felt to a certain extent the same. This pandemic has impacted, has caused all sorts of problems in our countries, but right across the world as well. And when will it be over? We've looked for salvation over the last 12 months. And we've been asked to do many different things to try to bring about healing within our community, to keep us safe. We were asked to lock ourselves down, almost to hide ourselves away, as if we were almost buried in a tomb, or the tomb of our own homes. We were then told to distance ourselves from others. We've been told to sanitize. We've been told to wear face masks to hide ourselves from others. And even we've been told in some places, and more so it'll be coming, there are opportunities for people to take a vaccine, for something to be put into us to bring healing or salvation for us. Over the last 3 days, Christians, we have been reflecting on Christ at the Last Supper, Christ at the Garden of Gethsemane, Christ at his death, and today we reflect on Christ at the resurrection. We need a Saviour in our world, and Jesus Christ is the Saviour. Jesus Christ is the one that we bring into ourselves, and he brings healing. He doesn't just bring earthly healing from a pandemic or from the next flu, but he brings eternal healing. Unlike the vaccine, which might have side effects, when we bring Jesus into us, we are bringing new life into us. And that's what we celebrate on a Holy Thursday, that Jesus gave himself as food to live within us as the bread of life. Our humanity needs healing, and Jesus brings that healing for us. He doesn't bring it through a vaccine, he brings it through the Eucharist. He brings eternal healing. And so our humanity is healed. We look from between Thursday through to today, the stories that we hear are particularly human. Elements of humanity, of hands, of feet, of side, of eyes, of head, of skin, of touch, of smell. All of these need healing. Sometimes we misuse our humanity. We can use it for ourselves, and sometimes we can abuse or are negligent in understanding how our own humanity impacts others. Jesus brings that healing for us in the Eucharist. He brings it into ourselves. On Good Friday, on Friday we reflected on community. We've been told over the last 12 months to isolate, to distance ourselves from community. Families were told, because of the fear of the pandemic, not to gather. And that was such a hard thing. It was a hard thing for me, and I'm sure it's been a hard thing for many of us. I have 3 siblings who are living overseas, one in the United States, one in England, and one in Singapore. We haven't been able to gather as a family. My younger brother, who's been in Singapore, was only expecting to go for a few months. He's now been there for 15, 16 months already. It's been hard. What Jesus does on Good Friday is that Jesus brings renewal of families and communities. He brings renewal of institutions. He brings renewal of society. The pandemic has shown us some elements of renewal within society, but it's also caused us and sometimes forced us to distance. Jesus at the cross looks down to his mother and creates a new family. He looks down at John and reminds John that Mary can be his mother. Together as Catholics, as Christians, we know that we are not alone in this. We are all part of one family, and it's a beautiful family. It's a family that can gather together today. And we should rejoice that we have a family that can gather. Jesus wants us to have a family. He wants us to have a community that is of his love. And so Jesus brings salvation and renewal to all forms of community and relationships. Look to your relationships. Are they relationships based upon love and the love of Jesus Christ? Are they open to something beyond just the immediate pandemic, but something to a global and an eternal level? This is what Jesus offers at Easter. Jesus brings renewal to our human condition through the gift of the Eucharist. He brings renewal to our community by forming a family, by offering his life. And then Jesus brings an end to death and destruction. Yes, we still have some elements of that suffering, but on the day of the resurrection, Jesus comes alive again. He's no longer dead, he is alive. And he's alive for all eternity. That's the promise offered to us, and it's an amazing promise. It's hard to believe, I know, but it's incredible. Time and time again, we'll hear right throughout the Easter seasons people who experience the risen Jesus Christ. And each of us are experiencing Jesus Christ even today. It's an incredible thing. Throughout the story, from Holy Thursday through to Easter Sunday, it is a human experience, it is a community experience, but it's also an experience of creation and the environment. And it needs renewal as well. Sometimes we pollute things. Sometimes we walk heavily upon our world. Jesus comes and he renews creation. Sometimes creation can sometimes respond somewhat negatively to humanity. Sometimes we have earthquakes. Sometimes there are floods. Sometimes there are great fires and other natural disasters. We've seen this. And sometimes these things have been caused by us, by our own negligence, and sometimes by people's intention to cause destruction. Jesus says he's going to bring renewal to all of this. Let us be people of faith and belief who know that the last 12 months is not the way humanity's meant to always live. Some of the solutions provided by government and by others, these things might help, but ultimately and eternally, it's Jesus Christ who's the Saviour. The true salvation that will get us through not just this pandemic, but will get us beyond death, is the gift that Jesus gives in the Eucharist. We have Christ who can come and live within us to renew us so that we aren't just each of us as human beings, that we allow God to live in us, to dwell in us. We allow God to then come into our families, to renew them, to renew our community, to renew our structures. And we allow God to help us to renew our environment, our world, God's creation. Happy Easter to you all. It is a real joy we can gather together today. Let us delight in this renewal that God has brought, that we can gather, that we can celebrate God coming to each of us to bring an end to fear, suffering, and death, and to give us a future that's based upon family, a future that's based upon creation, a future that's based upon the image of God, reaching each person to the ends of the earth. Let's celebrate with joy this Easter, with a joy we've perhaps never had before. Let's delight in that we are here together. Let's delight that God is within us. And let us bring that love to our world this Easter.